Hey everyone, welcome back to the MMA Fight Night. Let's dive right into it. Francis Ngannou is firing back at Jon Jones' latest comments. It's been a while since Ngannou stepped into the UFC octagon, and Dana White has made it crystal clear he's not interested in bringing the Predator back. But after Jon Jones' stunning victory at UFC 309, Ngannou's been relentless, calling out Bones for a showdown. For months leading up to Ngannou's UFC exit, the MMA world was buzzing with the anticipation of this dream match. Everyone wanted to see how Ngannou and Jones would clash. Both fighters had called for it, but in the end, talks fell apart and the fight never materialized. Fast forward to today, and the future is still up in the air for Ngannou, especially now that he's secured the PFL Super Fight Heavyweight title. And the same goes for Jon Jones, who's already conquered Stipe Miocic. Fans are absolutely buzzing, hoping to see Jones square off against interim UFC champion Tom Aspinall. But with Bones staying tight-lipped about the potential fight, rumors are swirling that he's ducking the rising star. And speaking of ducking, Jon Jones recently clapped back at fans and pundits who've been calling him out on social media. Crazy how being called a duck pays better than most of you internet tough guys will make in a lifetime. 2 fights in 4 years and still one of the biggest names in the sport. That's not ducking, that's winning. God's blessings hit different. Stay mad. After Jones's post, Ngannou didn't hold back and dropped a response that had everyone talking. Blessings make haters uncomfortable, but they can't change it. There's only one fight, the right fight, that will multiply your blessings. Ngannou vs Jones. So it'll definitely be exciting to see if the buzz about Jones fighting Ngannou resurfaces and goes viral again. Recently, PFL CEO Peter Murray stoked the fire while chatting with TalkSport MMA at the PFL event in Saudi Arabia. When asked about Ngannou possibly facing either Jones or Aspinall, Murray made it clear, the UFC is the only obstacle standing in the way. We're supportive of it. The fighters want the fight. Jon Jones wants the fight. Francis wants the fight. We want the fight. Our partners here in Saudi want the fight. It really comes down to, does the UFC want to step up to it or not? Period. As we've mentioned before, the likelihood of Ngannou and Jones ever facing off seems almost non-existent, especially as long as Dana White remains in control of the UFC. There's been no sign that the outspoken CEO is planning to step down anytime soon. And let's not forget, even if White were to leave or make peace with Ngannou, it's hard to imagine the UFC wanting to give the PFL a massive boost by teaming up with them. After all, many mainstream sports fans still think of the UFC and MMA as one and the same. Now, let's dive into Umar Nurmagomedov's recent injury reveal. For weeks, he's been adamant that he should be the one to challenge new bantamweight champion Merab Dvalishvili in his first title defense. Not only that, the undefeated star claimed he was told he'd be next in line for a shot at the belt. With an impressive 6-0 record in the UFC and an undefeated 18-0 overall, fans and pundits alike were on board with his claim. But as 2024 quickly approaches, it's starting to seem like Nurmagomedov may be rethinking that title shot. Why? Well, as you probably remember, Merab has been firm in his stance that Umar doesn't deserve a crack at the title just yet. And there's the issue of timing. Nurmagomedov has already said he won't fight during Ramadan, which starts in February and runs into March. Recently, reports surfaced that Nurmagomedov had agreed to fight Song Yadong in December, only for it to be confirmed that the fight won't be happening. Fast forward to today, and Nurmagomedov has finally revealed the reasons behind the delay in booking his next fight on social media. The Dagestani sensation shared, "I had a small arm fracture and couldn't perform in January. My arm is fine now and I'm open to any offers, anyone, anywhere." So, there are a few key things to unpack here. First, it's now clear why Nurmagomedov wasn't booked to fight before the year ended or at the start of 2025. But what really stands out is that Nurmagomedov hasn't directly called out Merab. Of course, this doesn't necessarily mean that the UFC has told Umar he's out of the title picture for now, but his sudden shift to calling for any fight is definitely a change of pace. So, what do you think? Could this be a sign that the UFC has moved on to other matchups, like Davison Figueiredo versus Petr Yan? Or maybe the promotion wants to keep Merab on the sidelines until Sean O'Malley is ready to return? Or do you still think we'll see the new Georgian champion face off against Nurmagomedov next? Alex Pereira was caught on camera arm wrestling a bodybuilder, and guess what? He made him tap out. You've got to see this.
샤마. 아, 샤마 뜻이네. 샤마. Let's go. 마지막.
Next up, Jamahal Hill and Michael Bisping are going at it. Hill won't throw down until UFC 311, but the former light heavyweight champ has been sparring online with big names like Yuri Prochazka and, more recently, Michael Bisping. Hill's never been one to hold back his opinions or stay quiet in the face of criticism. Recently, he's been trading verbal shots with Prochazka, and the two former champions are set to face off on January 18th. But things have been tense ever since Hill's infamous yawn at UFC 307, which came after Prochazka's stunning finish of Glover Teixeira. That moment sparked some backlash, especially since Hill was brutally knocked out by Poatan this past April. After that loss, Hill fired back, claiming referee Herb Dean mishandled the situation, not properly separating him from Poatan after the champ waved off a low blow. So, what does this have to do with Bisping? Well, on a recent episode of the former middleweight champions podcast, Bisping called Hill a sore loser while talking about his reaction to that tough loss. Naturally, Hill fired back with this post on social media. Bisping calling me a sore loser and talking about men on losing is the craziest to me ever, bro. You've been crying and salty about Dan Henderson for 20 years and Vitor Belfort for 15 years. You would think spending half your career losing you would know how to take it. That didn't sit well with the Count, who quickly fired back with this. Did you watch what I said, or did you read some headline? If it's a headline, I'll accept your apology. I said you were a bit of a sore loser because you're a true competitor, and then went on to explain how, if that energy is channeled correctly, it can be truly beneficial to a fighter's mindset. I was being nice, not talking. I didn't have you down as the easily offended type. All the best with your camp. So, it'll be intriguing to see where this all leads, if anywhere. But what's your take on this? Does Hill have a valid point when he brings up Bisping's long-standing issues with his brutal KO loss to Dan Henderson and his stoppage loss to Vitor Belfort during the infamous TRT era? Or is Bisping justified in calling Hill a sore loser for how he reacted to his knockout by Poatan? Up next, Chael Sonnen has a message for Jon Jones. As we've already discussed, talk of Jon Jones facing Tom Aspinall continues to heat up. In fact, the excitement has only grown since Jones took out Stipe Miocic at UFC 309. While Jones keeps brushing off the idea of fighting Aspinall, he's made it clear he'll be fighting again, and he's left the door open for a showdown with the interim heavyweight champ, if the UFC offers him big money. But since Jones hasn't called out Aspinall and has shown interest in fighting Alex Pereira, people are now wondering if a Bones vs. Poatan matchup is in the works, especially since Jones has even hinted he might vacate the heavyweight title to chase super fights. Well, Chael Sonnen thinks that if Jones is holding out for a Poatan fight, or any other bout except one with Aspinall, he's in for a long wait. I'll let you know what UFC stands. Jon has two choices. You fight Tom, or you don't fight. There's nobody else going to be offered. In fact, we've got a name that came off the board of possibilities in terms of Alex Pereira. Dana put that to absolute rest, and when the odds makers put it as a 6-1 spread favoring Jones, that fight is gone. So Jon can sit out and not fight, that's true, but he's not going to be in a spot where he could fight someone else. It's basically retire or fight Tom Aspinall. Is Sonnen onto something here? He could be, especially after UFC 309. Dana White has said he's certain that Jones is just too big and too well-rounded for Poatan. Plus, the UFC boss has been adamant that Jones should fight Aspinall next. Now, if talks for Jones-Aspinall fall apart because Bones is asking for a ridiculous amount of money, would he really settle for a much lower payout to fight Poatan? Given that his camp would argue that fight could also rake in a ton of cash, probably not, right? On top of that, Poatan is one of the biggest stars in the UFC right now. So, does the promotion really want to see his stock drop with a potentially crushing loss to Jones? What's your take on this? If Jones prices himself out of a fight with Tom Aspinall, do you think the UFC will chase any other matchups with him? Now, let's dive into Michael Bisping's warning to Ian Garry for UFC 310. Ian Masato. Garry has been on a winning streak since he started his pro MMA journey back in 2019, but after recent comments from Michael Bisping about Garry's upcoming showdown with Shavkat Rakhmonov, it seems like Bisping wouldn't be shocked if Garry's perfect record finally gets shattered. Garry is set to face the undefeated welterweight and rising star on December 7th, after champion Belal Muhammad was forced out due to a bone infection. Garry has been vocal about how complete and dangerous Rakhmonov is, and it's precisely why he's eager to take him on. Well, in a recent video on Bisping's YouTube channel, he shared his thoughts on the much-anticipated fight between Garry and Rakhmonov, and during the video, Bisping had this to say. Ian Garry is probably going to dance around the octagon and use the exact same game plan he did against Jeff Neal. He's got to keep Shavkat Rakhmonov off him. If he cannot stop the takedown, he will get finished. And that is no disrespect to Ian Garry. Bisping also added, can Ian Garry stop the takedown? Because if he can't, someone's O has got to go, and that's probably going to be Ian Garry's. But he does have a path to victory, using the range, sticking, and moving. The crowd will boo, but who cares about the crowd? Winning is all that matters. So far, Rakhmonov hasn't exactly been a takedown machine in the octagon. UFC stats show he averages 1.49 takedowns per fight with an accuracy of 29%. But let's be real, Garry hasn't faced anyone like Rakhmonov yet. This guy is a finishing machine, whether it's with strikes or chokes. And as Bisping pointed out, we haven't really seen Garry's wrestling or clinch game put to the test. Garry's also a nightmare for his opponents thanks to his incredible range, reach, and brutal jab. What do you think? Will Rakhmonov be the one to take Garry down and hand him his first loss? Khamzat Chimaev. Does he deserve a title shot next? Sean Strickland has been vocal, even downright fierce, about his belief that he should be the next challenger for middleweight champ Dricus du Plessis. But Robert Whittaker, who once held that very belt, isn't buying it. Since Strickland lost the 185-pound title to du Plessis by split decision back in January, he's been demanding a rematch. However, the UFC had other plans, booking Strickland for a fight against Paulo Costa this past summer. After his controversial win, Strickland doubled down on his call for a title shot. Not only that, after Robert Whittaker was swiftly submitted by Khamzat Chimaev at UFC 308 in October, Strickland didn't hold back, claiming he's the rightful next challenger for Dricus du Plessis. Strickland even says the UFC has told him as much. But recently on his YouTube channel, Whittaker made his case for why it should be Chimaev, not Strickland, who gets the title shot next. I'm interested to see what he does next. I think he's going to be a nightmare for a lot of the dudes in the top 5 because I don't know how you stop that takedown. I think he should go straight to Dricus. I don't think sitting out should be rewarded ever, but it's not my call, not my decision. Whittaker isn't the only one with this opinion. While Strickland did narrowly lose to du Plessis, he also lost the belt in his first defense, and Costa hasn't been considered a serious title contender in years. Chimaev, on the other hand, has only fought once in 2024 and once in 2023, so his activity has been limited. However, recency bias is a major factor in MMA, and Chimaev just demolished Whittaker. Strickland, meanwhile, has only one stoppage since 2020. What do you think? Should DDP fight Chimaev or Strickland next? Conor McGregor faces court scrutiny again over explosive online rant. The High Court is reportedly delving into Conor McGregor's fiery online attacks against Nikita Hand, as per the Irish Independent. This follows a ruling where McGregor was found guilty and ordered to shell out over $250,000 in fees to Hand. Despite the verdict, McGregor insists he's innocent, unleashing a barrage of social media posts targeting Hand. But here's the kicker. Those posts could spell even more trouble. The High Court may slap McGregor with additional damages for his comments, and judging by his online tirades, things aren't looking great for him. Adding more fuel to his mounting financial woes, Conor McGregor is now facing an even bigger hit. He's reportedly on the hook for Nikita Hand's legal expenses. In many court battles, the losing party is obligated to cover the winner's legal costs, and this case is no exception. McGregor has allegedly been ordered to pay a jaw-dropping sum of over $1 million to cover Hand's legal fees. Yet another blow to his already turbulent situation.
Peace.